It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, November 14th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is so relieved the Phantoms finally beat Hershey.
But was it a great weekend?
We will get into that, plus some trade rumors and the Flyers to-do list this week, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at @rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology, and we are at Locked On Flyers out there in social media land as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. You can subscribe to our show or follow us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, trade rumors always get weird at some point. I didn't think they would get weird this early in the season, but here we are. Nikita Zadorov requested a trade from the Calgary Flames, and some people were like, hey, maybe the Flyers want him. Like the Flyers are a dumping ground for a $3.75 million salary. Plus, the Flyers have some blue line injuries, so that could have been part of it as well. But I just don't see the fit here, right?
No, he's a Dan Milstein guy, and not that the Flyers don't have any Dan Milstein guys, but it seems like he's focused. Zadorov is on the Leafs, and so that seems like the most likely place that he'd go. I don't think he wants to go to a non-contender, so that's where the Flyers would not be a fit.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, I just don't think they Flyers need a guy of his type right now. I feel like
Well, I mean, he he'd still be like their second best defenseman, so they could use him. And Torts would certainly like him because the style of play is physical. He does have a great shot, by the way. It's just one of those guys that he really is not known or used for his offense, but could provide some. But he is really good, but it just wouldn't work that in.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Also got word via our friend Jay over at Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets that some of the fans think Johnny Gaudreau should be traded to Philly now, which I think is hilarious at best and delusional at worst.
Yeah, I look. There's weird things going on in Columbus, uh, sending some of their better players down, including Juracek, young
Yep.
players. I mean, and so Goudreau not doing well. I think it's just a part part and parcel of a problem of whatever's going on with that team. It'll get cured. He always gets his points.
Yeah, he does. He does. I just thought it was funny,
It is
and
funny.
we should take any and all opportunities to make fun of some division rival fans here.
Sure.
Another interesting bit of NHL news that's tangentially Flyers related. Todd Woodcroft, of course, getting fired from the Edmonton Oilers and is now replaced by former Flyers assistant coach Chris Knobloch. And I thought that was a really interesting decision. Obviously, like something had to give in Edmonton at this point. And so we knew the firing was going to happen. It was just like, what were they going to do next?
Yeah, I knew Jay Woodcroft's days were numbered. I think the issue with that was watching the Ken Holland press conferences clips of it. I understood what happened because people were like, "Well, why did he get fired?" They just beat the Kraken, which, by the way, they own the Kraken. Like I was
Yeah.
listening to some of that game Saturday night after getting done with the game in Princeton, and for some reason, Edmonton just goes in there and does really well. So they did that still. But the thing was, they had to, you know, Knobloch was the head coach of Hartford, so they had to talk to Hartford. They had to talk to, you know, the Rangers, get permission, get a deal done, and you can't do that overnight. So while all that was going on, he still had to coach another game. But if you had watched 2 games ago, him coming off the ice, people were lip reading, and he was like telling Manson, his assistant, "I think this is it." And so, like, you knew that was it. It's just it took an extra day.
Yeah, it's a fickle business, this NHL head coaching thing, and Jay Woodcroft knows it, I think, more than some others at this point. But yeah, clearly the Oilers just needed a change somewhere, and the coach is the most
The
obvious thing to
easiest one, they
change.
tried to make trades, nothing happened. It's the only thing they
Yeah,
can do. Woodcroft's a good coach. He'll get another job.
yeah, I think so too. And just a quick congrats again to former Flyers head coach Ken Hitchcock on his Hockey Hall of Fame induction. That was the other night. Just absolutely well deserved.
Hitch is a great guy. He's so quotable. But when he first came to Philly, I got the first interview with him because I have a love of greyhounds. We've adopted and rescued at least 3, maybe 4 in my lifetime, and Ken is very involved with that, especially when he was in Dallas. So he agreed to interview with me so we could talk about greyhound rescue. We did talk about hockey too, but it was great. I was like the first one that got to interview him, but it just shows where his heart is.
Yeah, that's really nice to see. Aside from that, not much coming out of the Flyers camp, but they do have a significant amount of downtime this week with just one.
Practice?
Shocking, I know. Just one weekday game this week, and I think, what we've been talking about in terms of what they need to address, makes it for a really simple process to get to your to-do list for this week, and obviously, number 1 on that list is addressing the power play, right?
Power play. Check. Let's work on that a whole practice. Let's unlock the power play. Let's do something. Let's put somebody else on the point. Let's pretend somebody's going to go to the net. Like, there's things you could do, but they're just not doing them. And there's
Yeah,
changes they can make, but they're just not making them. They're just doing wholesale things with this, and it's like a leaky boat, and you're putting like Flex Seal on it, and eventually it's going to leak. It's going to leak again.
yeah, I think so. I think, they've played around a little bit with 2 guys behind the net in some circumstances, and that can work, but you have to have the right personnel there to do it,
Yeah.
that have better deception on
I
their
mean, do 2 guys
passes.
equal 1 Gretzky? There used to be just 1 Wayne Gretzky behind the net, if
No,
you
yeah,
remember
because you
his
you
offense.
have you have to have really quick passes, and you
Yeah,
have to be able to be deceptive about it
yeah.
because, like, otherwise the defense is just gonna camp out there and just
Yeah,
watch
they're
you
just
play
gonna
with the
leave you
puck,
back there
right?
and cover the angles, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that, they've gotta try a couple of other things. They have to try cycling the puck a little
Put
bit
Cam
more.
Atkinson at the point. Do it.
Yeah,
He's hot right
yeah,
now. He's got a good
yeah,
shot. He can catch up if the puck goes over his stick, like, just do it.
yeah, and, maybe try that 5 forward, power play
Yeah,
unit like we talked about as well. I think secondarily, one of the things that I would work on is sort of like your breakout and zone exits and then offensive zone entry, just to try to balance the offense a little bit and not have teams like really have it be obvious what the Flyers are doing when they break out of the zone. If it's going to be a dump or it's going to be, a carry in, I think like they can be a little bit more like challenging to opponents on
yeah.
how they get down the ice.
I like that. I also would like to see them do at least a noticeable, more 1 or 2 noticeable set plays with Couturier off the faceoff. I
Oh
know he
yeah, that
talks
would be
to guys,
great.
you can see him doing it kind of like impromptu, but it seems like Giroux used to do it more than anybody else has done since. And I know last year they were doing some set plays that worked, and I don't know, I'm not detecting as much this year.
Yeah, connecting has always been involved in those conversations on the ice when
Right.
they happen, and so yeah, and I think Noah Cates has the skill to be able to
Yeah,
deal
he
with that
does
as
too.
well. If he can if he can win the faceoff. But Morgan Frost could do it as well, and is probably more likely to win the faceoff there. But if they can get the right line combinations of guys and the right
Especially on the
person,
power play, it could help it.
yeah, yeah, I think so too. Just like really drill down into like at least 5 or 6 set plays you have in your arsenal off of an offensive zone face-off. I think that would be tremendously helpful. I think the last thing for me, we talked about on yesterday's show the fact that they had so much success net front, and that you can't rely on that entirely because teams are going to catch wind of what you're doing real fast and
Right.
figure out a way to stop it. So it's like, how can you change up those looks net front a little bit? How can you get there? How do you change who is stationed net front and rotate and cycle in a way that it can create some additional looks but have the same general strategy there for you?
Well, I think you just said it. Cycle more.
Yeah.
They don't cycle enough. They don't have enough lines that cycle enough, and you probably need to do that against a team like Vegas because Vegas plays a pretty tough, rugged game. They've got big players. They've got fast players. So that would be a good idea against them.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, it is time for Phantoms Tuesday. There was a lot going on in Lehigh Valley this past week, and we will get to that coming up next. On our Wednesday show, we will be having our mailbag segment. So get those questions into us. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a DM on the app formerly known as Twitter, or comment over on our YouTube channel. Russ, like I said at the top of the show, the Phantoms finally defeated the Hershey Bears 4-1 this weekend. That was like their 4th game against Hershey in a very short time frame. Hershey, of course, one of the top teams in the AHL and just notoriously difficult to play against. And so that puts the Phantoms 5, 6, and 2 right now. They are in 7th place in the division, 12th in the conference.
Not great.
Not great overall. Now, like if you account, playing Hershey 4 times in the past couple of weeks, I think that you can maybe come up with an explanation. It's not an excuse. But they won 1 game and lost 2 over the weekend. The first game on Wednesday that they had versus Springfield was not great. They lost that one 4-2. And I do think they got better as the weekend went on. That second game where they were shut out by Hershey 2-0, they actually played pretty decently. They just couldn't get shots to go. So I believe that there's like a silver lining to the cloud of having a losing weekend overall.
Yeah, the only thing is they're just these wild lineup swings that don't make sense. Example: why isn't Lycksell on the top line every game? Like he's your best guy, he's your best goal scorer. Why in the world would you even mess with that? Doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's what they're considering the top line versus not. I feel like that's kind of muddy, in terms of where you would list it versus what the actual minutes are. Maybe doesn't like necessarily match up. But so I do think that Lycksell is on their de facto top line, but they have been mixing it up a little bit in terms of having Cooper Marody on there, who's been playing really well.
Mhm.
Samu Tuamala rotating in and out there. But I think, like, obviously, one of the biggest downsides to this past weekend was the injury to Elliot Desnoyers
Yeah,
that
that was a headhunt
happened.
shot, man. The guy's 6'4",
Mhm.
and boy, that was just bad.
Yeah, and there was no penalty on the
Nothing.
play, and it was, uh, Dmitry Osipov, man, just, like, lifted his arm straight into Denoyers, probably, like, high chest and shoulders, and so his head hit up against him, and then he just went straight down.
And we're expecting
Um,
him to be out a little while. There's no real report out on it, but based on how he got hit, he's not playing for a little while.
right, so, there's been a lot of movement in the lineup related to injuries and the illness that has gone around. So Emil Andre is back, Ronnie Attard is back, Wade Allison is back, Victor Mete is up with the Flyers, as we know. Will Smolek was sent down to Reading, but Mason Millman is still with the Phantoms. I'm sure you are thrilled about that.
Yeah, I am. And actually, for as little output as the Phantoms defensemen are giving you point wise, he's got 2 points in 6 games. At least, he does have that extra offensive kick and very good skater. I do like what they had on the Sunday lineup. Like
Yeah.
that's to me, Andre Brands, Yinning, Adder, Millman, Sampson. I like that a lot.
Yep. Yeah, me too. And as obviously you want Denoyer in the lineup there, and he wasn't on the forward side of things. But I think after having Ginning with Sampson and Andre with Grans, I think that moving people around a little bit. So Andre is still with Grans, which we talked about because that's how it was in training camp, and I think it's a decent pairing, especially again since Mete is up with the Flyers. This is your core that you're dealing with here for the blue line. Ginning and Attard back together made a ton of sense. Millman and Sampson, I think, make a ton of sense. And lo and behold, they win this game. So I think there's something to it
I
here.
do think there's something to it. People have been messaging me about Ginning and saying, "Is he having a good year? What's going on with him?" Because he wasn't called up, and you see that was like a misconception based on the fact that he didn't get called up because the coach had said, Tortorella had said, he needs more work. People were thinking he wasn't having a good year. No, he's having a good year. He's playing
Yep.
really well.
Yeah, both Ginning and Attard are having good years.
Yeah,
They've
Adams
just made
have
it.
more points, but otherwise he's having a good
Yeah, I think like they're just making a decision that for call-ups right now, they want veterans, and that's why
year. Right,
Belpedio and Mete are the ones that are up with the Flyers right now,
right.
and that's it. That's the entire decision. But in the meantime, Ginning and Attard are getting real quality minutes down in Lehigh Valley, and again, they are playing generally well
Yeah.
overall. So I think that is pretty big.
Tuamala
Another
was cooled off a little though.
a little bit, yeah. I do think overall we need to get more pucks on net in Lehigh Valley. Their shots on goal for the 3 games were 24, 24, and 19. They did outshoot Hershey on Saturday in the loss, but they were outshot in those other games. And I think in order to have more of a chance of it going in, they just need to be getting closer to the 30 shots on goal per game. I think just to show like a little bit more aggressiveness on their part.
With the 100 forwards they have, um,
Yeah.
I I have very little time now for Wade Allison. I hate to say it.
I think he was playing a little better this weekend. He was sick the previous weekend, and I think that he did. I think he showed out pretty decently. He got his first goal of the season on Wednesday.
Look how
He
long it
fired it
took.
through. Yeah, it did take a while, but I think that it was a good goal, and I think that even in that 2-0 loss, I thought he was playing really aggressively and confidently.
Okay.
So, we'll give him a little bit more time here before
Right.
we completely
He
write him
could be
off.
a
But
top three guy for them. If he's not, there's no future for Wade Allison in Philly.
yeah, I just want to see where this progresses
Okay.
from like 2 weeks ago to this past week. And let's see. I don't know what's going to happen, but I still am kind of in a wait and see mode with
Okay.
him there. We did talk about, their special teams. And I think, this is also kind of a double-edged sword here. Their penalty kill was perfect for the week,
That's
which
good.
is tremendous. But they still need to get more disciplined with the penalties. We talked about how the Phantoms had the most penalty minutes in the AHL last week. Now they're number 2 because the Marlies apparently got into it a little bit. But I think that that's just going to be a big part of it here in terms of the discipline because Sure, their PK was perfect on Sunday, but there were 7 Hershey power plays
A lot.
over the course of the game. That is a lot, and you just can't give up that many opportunities, especially for a team like Hershey to
Right.
get back into a game, when you're kind of holding on to, say, like a 3-1 lead for a significant portion of time. Like that 2-goal lead, especially against Hershey, is gonna be pretty dangerous. So they gotta get more disciplined, but continue to play well on the PK.
Yeah, I think, look, the team's got a lot of good players, and I just feel like they're still underperforming a bit. So I just would like to see them go on a little tear when, they're winning 2 out of 3 at least every week. It's not happening
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. Well, right now, Olle Lycksell and Cooper Marody are tied for the team lead in points. They each have 10 points on the season. Olle Lycksell, who had been assistless until this past weekend, had 8 goals. Now has 2 assists added to his point totals. One of them was really quite wonderful, I must say. He had a great pass, but I do think that they just need to get more points on the board. They need to get more aggressive. And they really, like, some of these guys need to step up a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about some individual players, and we will do that coming up next.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Uh, this Monday night, you've got Eagles, Kansas City. I would take the over. And if you wanted to bet a winner, I would bet on Kansas City for this one. The Eagles are due to lose a game. That's just my thought.
Uh,
Sorry,
yeah,
Rachel.
this is the Taylor Swift game, I guess, is what we're calling it.
That's definitely what you would call it. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and get into the action this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
So, continuing our Phantoms Tuesday discussion, we talked about Wade Allison a little bit, mentioned Olle Lycksell. That assist was a really great pass he had on the Cooper Marody goal on Sunday, who continues to stand out on this Phantoms team. We talked about him maybe getting a shot here. He is on a 2-way contract. He had a goal on Wednesday, a goal and an assist on Sunday. And so he had that fantastic goal where he paired up with Olle Lycksell. Then he had a tremendous feed to JR Avon, who scored on Sunday as well. So, like, he's like teaming up with the right guys and some of the top prospects on the Phantoms and having a great deal of success.
Yeah, he was my sleeper back in the day, 2015 for the draft, because I'd watched him in the USHL. I do think he's still a really good player. He's never going to be a great player, but he's useful. He's a good role player. He's never played a game for the Flyers, and that's the team that drafted him. Everybody felt good about Louis Belpedio going up and score. Well, then feel good, call him up. Like, this is the kind of thing you could do with this Flyers team if the coach wanted to, because you're not a Stanley Cup contender. And give a guy a little, let him get that little taste. Put him up for a couple of games. He'll kill it the rest of the year for the Phantoms. Like, it would be an organizational win. Will that happen? I don't know. I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know either, but he's making it harder and harder to look away.
Right.
And that's what you have to do when
Yeah.
you're in the
I mean,
AHL.
look at
And
Olle Lycksell's done that. I mean, and he can't get a sniff. So
yeah. Meanwhile, we talked about Samu Tuomala, a little bit of a quiet weekend on the
yeah,
score sheet, but I still think he had some really good moments of play. He's continuing to play at a higher level, just like didn't have the results this past weekend. So, another kind of wait and watch situation with him. Tanner Lazinski, a little bit of a quiet week from him. I thought he played actually pretty well in that loss to Springfield on Wednesday. 5 shots on goal in that one, just couldn't get one to go. But 0 shots on Saturday, only 2 on Sunday. and definitely a quieter weekend overall. I definitely think he's somebody that needs to pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, and they were giving him some top line time. If Tanner Lisinski could have a good year, like there's no reason he can't be a 4C for the Flyers sometime this year or next year. I like Ryan
Yep.
Poehling, but Poehling hasn't really lit it up. And Lisinski's your organizational guy. It's got to mean something to him. Plus, he's strong physically. Plus, he's smart. And I think he has battled. Like, if you want to get a guy who has battled his way into where he is now, battling injuries, staying with it, this is a guy.
Yeah, I think so. I think the opportunity is like there on a platter for him. He just has to come through.
Yeah,
And so I certainly hope he can stand out a little bit
he's the
more
fourth leading
over.
scorer on the team. He's tied for fourth.
Yeah, yeah. So I think if he just like continues to play hard and gets a little bit more on the score sheet, I think the possibility is absolutely there for him. I think JR Avon is making tremendous progress coming back from injury,
We
and
kind of knew he would.
yeah, and he's got 3 goals on the season so far. So I think a really good start for him coming back from injury as well.
Yeah, he's talented. I mean, he's going to score goals. He's fast, and he still needs time. Like he's a young guy in a in a playing in a professional league now. So I think this is a really good start for a young kid. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do wanna talk about the goaltending a little bit, because, obviously we're now in a situation where we don't have any quote unquote "Flyers prospects"
Do
in
they have
net.
the oldest goalie in the league?
I don't know, but,
They might.
uh,
Parker's 30
uh,
years old. For the
might be,
AHL, there might
so
be an older one or two, but not that many.
probably not. But, yeah, Parker Gahagan is actually playing really well, man. In that Saturday game, again, even though they lost, 19 saves on 21 shots, but there were some tough shots in there. He made 28 saves on 31 shots on Wednesday against Springfield. It could have been a lot worse were it not for him. And then on Sunday, Nolan Meyer, who had just been called up from Reading, was actually not playing that great in Reading overall,
Right.
but in the couple of games he's been in for the Phantoms so far, he's really stepped up. 29 saves on 30 shots against Hershey on Sunday, and really kept them in that game, and was allowed the Phantoms to protect their leads.
Yeah, no, it's listen, I like Nolan. I think there's a little something there. I don't think he's going to be any kind of like regular in the NHL, but like as a guy
No.
who you could call up on an emergency basis, yeah, I think there's possibility of that.
Yeah, I think so as well, and I certainly hope he gets more chances at the AHL level, but I also hope Felix Sandstrom stops being injured so that we can actually see him play more
Yeah,
than
it's been
one
a
game.
tough year for him. He doesn't get to play, then he gets injured. It's not good.
Not good. The Phantoms are going on their Canada road trip starting this weekend. So they are playing Friday at Laval. They are playing Saturday at Belleville. And then the following Tuesday, an unusual Tuesday night game at the Toronto Marlies. So a big road trip against some tough teams that they're going to need to have some big results.
See, I would have expected that Marlies game to be like that 1 o'clock game that they play once in a while. They have those day games.
Oh,
That
those
would
afternoon
those afternoon games.
games.
That would
Yeah.
be cool.
Alas, no, it is Tuesday at 7 p.m. But we will, of course, check in with the Phantoms next week, as we do each and every week, and see how the Flyers prospects down there are doing, or up there, I guess, in this case, geographically. That'll do it for today's show. Tomorrow, we have your mailbag, as previously mentioned. Plus, we're going to be talking about our second matchup with the Carolina Hurricanes of the season. I am Rachel. I'm on the app formerly known as Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a fantastic day, everyone.